Hey, Scott Jordan and Mark Warner for Jancast number 172 for Thursday, July 18th, 2024. And yes, it was 101 degrees yesterday, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it was brutally, brutally hot.
Yeah, terrible, terrible stuff.
Actually, the amazing thing is that at this point of the year, it's like the second or third heat wave,
Yeah.
which is, I don't remember it being like that.
I don't even say it, but no such thing as global warming. It's not happening. It's going. I did hear it snowed at the Philadelphia airport yesterday. I haven't gotten any confirmation on that, but the news was actually saying that.
Uh, what?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know about that. But speaking of news, Mark, I'm a big fan of international travel and everything else. And my daughter and I were fortunate enough to go to New Zealand twice. And did you know that July is the beer and pie month in New Zealand? Beer and Pie July, they call it. It's a month long celebration. Imagine that, a month long. We don't do any food celebration in the United States. It's a month long, but it's their favorite thing, a mixture of beer and pie. And we're talking about pie. It's not like a big round pie. I know this is not a New Zealand pie, but it's very similar to this pie, which those in the US know what this is. It's about that size. So you go into a store and like going to Dunkin' Donuts, instead of donuts, they have 20 different kinds of pies. And of course, you grab a beer to go along with it, which
Well, that is the more curious part. I didn't know they went together.
well, of course they go together. What's the matter with you? Don't you sit around and have, hey, I got a beer. I really need a pie.
Well, that Philadelphia pie that you showed, normally it's something that I might consume with a coffee.
One of my favorites, the lemon.
Ah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's some real news. But speaking of other news, we've got about that nasty stuff, PFAS.
yeah, actually, that's been on the news, in and out of the news for the last 6 months, really. And it's
Yeah.
all about, I think California is
Hmm.
the first state that kind of started keying on it. But, that's it shows that the whole world is shifting to take a look at what's in some of the ingredients of certain things that are out there and whether or not they're toxic and safe. And
Yeah.
PFAS is one of those deals that there has been a cloud over that for what's got like a decade or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Back a long time ago, I guess it was maybe 20 years ago, one of our competitors was coming after our carpet business, and they put, I don't want to say what the material is, because I don't want to get sued, but it starts with a T. And they put it in like every product they had because they thought, well, that's a good way of, kind of seizing on something that people didn't think there was any issue with. But, and we made a big deal about pointing out the fact that their product had a bunch of this stuff in it that even at that time, and that was 20 plus years ago, there was a lot of question as to whether or not it was safe or whatever, and they used that T materials was used in everything. So we did a pretty good effort of trying to point out the fact that the stuff isn't necessarily good for you. And then we got a nice little letter in the mail saying cease and desist, or we're going to sue you out of business. So it's like, okay, I understand, but and it's interesting. It's now kind of come full circle that everybody's kind of saying, well, I guess that stuff really was bad. I mean,
yeah.
you think about all the not just chemicals used in cookware and everything else. I mean, some really bad stuff. So if your customers are seeing that on the end user level, and they're wondering, hey, do your products have it? I mean, we don't make anything, Bullen, we don't make anything that has that in it, but there's still products out there, so you have to be aware of it. And the concern is, some potential issues with cancer and a couple other things on it. So yeah, very
Well,
important.
even back in the day, Scott, when there were a lot of products that were trying to incorporate polyfluoroalkyl substances,
Yeah,
PFAS, right?
yeah, that's right.
Um,
We forgot to say that. Yeah,
yeah,
just rolls right off your
polyfluoroalkyl
tongue.
substances. Yeah, well, I had to practice that, but no, I'm kidding. But what the claims were kind of iffy too. I mean,
Yeah,
the concept was, because it's in the cleaning compound, it means the dirt's going to slide off the fiber and
yeah,
it'd be easier to clean. And that's a little bit of come on.
yeah.
The other issue was because technically, if it had that ability, it would have been like walking across an ice skating rink if you're walking
Mm.
across a carpet with that on it, right? So
Yeah.
that was a little bit over the top in terms of a claim. And then the other thing that was somewhat of a negative that we investigated way back when was that these substances, although they have like an anti-slip stick property, they actually have another characteristics which is similar to like ice melter, and that is that they attract moisture out of the air.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
just like, you could take a pan and clean it, put it in a cupboard and pull it out a week later and you rub your hands on it and it feels kind of slimy
Hmm.
and wet. It's moisture. It's
Yeah.
not grease, it's moisture that's on there. And it's because that material draws moisture out of the air. Now, if you take that one step further and say, well, do I really want a moist carpet if I'm going to have a lot of traffic, right? So we all
Yeah.
know that a moist carpet is fantastic at cleaning the bottom of people's shoes.
Yeah.
Transfers all the dirt to the
Yep.
carpet and you end up with
Yep.
traffic lanes, right? So, there were some other pieces of that, which is uh, part of the performance reason why we didn't go down that path,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well,
it
and
actually
so
had
some of
this
the original
oiling
uses of it,
problem.
some of the original uses of that material was actually, it was formulated into the carpet fiber itself, which I think is probably a little bit better than spraying something. I mean, the initial reason some of these things were brought out is you had the commercial versions of, the cleaning process, but then you had the carpet was made with it, and then at some point it wears off. So they decided, well, we could sell a treatment that would replace the stuff that wore off. But yeah, but that was before anybody knew that it wasn't really safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it just goes to show that the industry is becoming more and more conscious of things related to health and safety. I mean,
Yep.
even ISSA did recently relaunching of their Value of Clean platform,
Yeah.
and the Value of Clean platform was all about the fact that what we do, our priority in the cleaning industry is not to make things look and smell nice.
Right.
That is the byproduct of us doing two other things really well. One is cleaning for health. And if you do
Hmm.
that really well, it ends up looking nice and smelling clean. The other end of it is asset protection, and that is protecting floors and cleaning carpets the right way. And if you do that well, the byproduct is it looks nice and
Yep.
smells clean, right? So the idea is that making things look clean and smell nice is the byproduct of two other things that are really more important, and that is protecting assets that people have invested a lot of
Yep.
money into, like floors and buildings and carpeting. And then more important than that is human health and safety. So it has become front and center with the ISSA. Other people have jumped on the bandwagon. There's standards that have been rolling around that have been incorporating
Yep.
the concept that health and safety should be our number one priority.
Yep.
And the byproduct of that, doing that well, should be that it looks clean and smells nice.
Yeah. Well, speaking of standards, we just finished, not we, the one of the standards just got kind of done its review, right? I mean, you know all about it, so tell us all about it, Mark.
Yeah, well, that's the you're referring to the
Yeah.
IICRC's S400 cleaning standard for the commercial built environment. So that standard is one that I was part of the consensus body. So I've been in that committee for the last, believe it or not, 5 years.
5 years.
5 years every Monday.
What can you do for 5 years?
Type one letter at a time. So I was doing the math. I'm like, my goodness, that's probably 250 meetings.
Yeah.
Um, Somewhere in there. I mean, it's not every single Monday, but almost every single Monday. That's the goal. But the other piece of that is that they wanted to make sure there are other standards out there. The ISSA has a standard
Yep.
called the Institutional and Commercial Standard, and that establishes certain benchmarks for readings on like ATP meters as a way of validating cleanliness. They spun that into the ISSA K through 12 standard, which was aimed at protecting our kids in school, make sure everything was nice. Those two standards did a nice job of establishing certain benchmarks, but they didn't go into the bigger picture of what's involved with cleaning in general. And so IICRC put together the S400 to take a holistic view of the cleaning industry and try to incorporate a lot of concepts into that, not just what an ATP meter ought to be, but literally how do we define cleanliness?
Hmm.
In reality, I've spoken with people that are involved with healthcare, and their definition of cleanliness is clean to the microscopic level, right?
Mm.
They want an ATP meter, make sure there's not even any bacteria there that you can't even see. I've also dealt with mass transit agencies that their definition of cleanliness was just make sure the loading platforms don't smell like urine. You know, big difference in the definition of cleanliness. And so the standard kind of gets into the fact that one of the most important things is to be very clear on what you're defining as your expected outcome. You
Mhm.
know, how are you defining cleanliness? And then beyond that, it gets into things like what are the tools you might use to measure it? Like, is it going to be an opinion? Like, it looks good to me, you know, or is
Right.
it going to be using ATP meters? Is it going to using black lights? Is it going to use Snell capsules? People don't even know what a Snell
Some form
capsule
of
is.
repeatable statistics. I like that it's kind of following our theme that we've had for like the last month or two about science-based stuff as it relates to cleaning. So yeah, we got the, kind of both ends of it there. Yeah.
Yeah, and does that where some other standards didn't. That's why there was felt that there was a need for it. And then it does get into like some of the tactics. You
Yeah.
know, the safety and health has been a predominant theme in all of these standards, but it gets a little bit into the tactics. Like what are the things you have to do? What are the shalls? What are the laws and the regulations? That if you don't do this, you're in trouble with the law. And so that's the shalls. And then there's shoulds. And that's really what I think people will take away from this is a lot of things of what you should be doing, you know, as it
Hmm.
relates to how you
Yep.
do things, not just how you manage your team, but what are the actual tactics for doing a floor or carpet or whatever. But so the shoulds are in there, and then there's a whole section of recommended. Like we can't make this a required part of the standard, but it's really recommended that you work with products that you know are
Right.
non-toxic or something. You know, so there's those three levels in every standard: the regulations, the shalls, the shoulds, which is
Hmm.
really what we discuss most of the time in these meetings is that that's what a really good operation should be doing.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of recommendations, which in some cases dive down into the details. So I spent a lot of time with that committee trying to put details into it, but a lot of those details are not like part of the standard. They become part of the appendix. And that
Right.
has to do with things like, you know, what did we used to use 100 years ago to clean with tool wise and equipment wise, and what do we have available now that is so much different? And there's a lot of new equipment out there. The same thing can be
Yeah.
said about chemicals. So I did talk about what we used to do years ago using like essentially dog shampoo to clean carpets with, you know, and now it's, you know, encapsulation and all that. So that's nuggets of information that appear in the appendix
Hmm.
as reference material. And then, you know, I did a white paper with Stan Hewlin and Todd Stoneking of the University of Utah
Oh
on
yeah.
custodial closets and the standards that they ought to meet, just like a kitchen in a restaurant needs to be clean. You
Yep.
know, cleaning provision area or a custodial closet needs to be clean. It's where all the equipment and everything's being stored and it's going out all over the building. It better be clean. It better not be a petri dish.
Well, back then, you were trying to give some direction for architects that kind of
Yep.
forgot about the fact that you needed such a thing, right?
Yeah, yep, absolutely true. So I mean, this standard became for folks like me, it became a place where all these things that you kind of talk about over the last 20 years, you're able to kind of move it into a single location, a single platform that somebody could access.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like that there's an appendix and references, and
Yeah.
I mean, it creates the beginning of a deep dive. The good news on it, Scott, is last word I got back on that. Is it looks like it's going to sail through on a fully approved level.
Good.
Did not seem to be a lot of negative comments related to people taking offense to anything that was said. It was done generically enough and science-based enough that I guess people didn't feel they needed to argue it.
Is the standard still up to people if they wanted to look at it? We could give them a link to go to, or is it closed because the review's closed at this point?
That's really a good question. All right, so
I
here,
just wanted, in case people were interested in seeing what this current standard we're talking about, entails, because when I went in and looked at it and made my comments, I was just amazed at the detail that was involved in the whole thing. And I guess if it takes 5 years, it better be pretty detailed, right?
You were one of the smart guys because the peer review, the public review process allowed you to get in and see that. It
Right.
will become available for anybody to see if they pay for it.
Oh, okay.
So, right.
Okay.
So the reason why people do these standards is so they become available for libraries and legal, the
Right.
whole legal field, attorneys, judges, and all that kind of stuff have a standard that they can use. So it becomes available for sale. But if you were
Okay.
involved with the review process, you got the opportunity to review it
I
without.
should have copied and pasted it. But there
Well,
is another one coming up, right? So let's make sure
yes.
people know about that, because it's good for everybody to participate in this, even if you're not an expert in it, right? It's open to
Absolutely.
anybody commenting, right? There's
Well, a
like
really good kind of way to define all that. So, my involvement with the S400 was because I'm considered to be somebody that knows their way around the cleaning industry, right?
right.
So, there was another standard that was put together called the S410 Infection Control Committee. And I was asked to be part of that, not because I'm a doctor or a nurse or an epidemiologist or an industrial hygienist. I'm a cleaning dude. But they wanted people like that. They didn't want
Yeah.
everybody just to be a subject matter expert in epidemiology and nobody knowing
Right.
what do you do if you go in there and you try to clean. So they always make these things wide open for everybody from all walks to be able to have some input because everybody's got something to offer,
Yep.
even if it's a different perspective because of their unique history and all that stuff. So the S410 is going to be coming out for public review, Scott, which
Yep.
allows you to view it for free. um, Probably within the next 30 days is my expectation. Now,
Okay.
the thing I'm kind of happy with, somewhat I could say I'm proud about being part of, was there was a joint task force, a joint subcommittee that was put together to offer input to both the S400 and the S410 because they're both related to cleaning. And the key was to make sure that they're using the same terminology,
Mm-hmm.
that there wasn't massive overlap, nor was there massive gaps that both thought the other guy was doing. So that was called the S400, S410 Joint Subcommittee Task Force, and I was asked to chair that. So
Cool.
so that was something that I had going at the same time, and it gave me unique powers, superhuman powers. Like I did not have to follow any rules. I could have anybody on
Nice.
my meetings that I
There you
wanted,
go.
and then I could offer any level of opinion I wanted to the chairs of both committees. So hopefully I didn't abuse that too much, but I did take advantage of that. But anyway, so that is coming out, and people have an opportunity to take a look at that, do a public review.
We'll comment on that in future Jancasts and put links in it, because for those of you that participated in the one that just closed, I thought it was a really interesting process just to see all the work that you guys have put into it, and I'm sure the next one's going to be just as enlightening. And again, it ties in with our whole perception of how cleaning is being viewed. It's not like, yeah, use that simple G stuff over there. It'll do the job. No, there's a lot more involved than, and actually none of these standards specifically call out branded product or anything like
Correct.
that. That's against
Correct.
the rules. So it's a
Right.
nice even playing field for those involved in the cleaning industry as well.
I love like the basic theme of the whole thing
Yeah.
is something that we've been talking about a long time, and that is that you have to have the right tools for the job.
Yep.
It's not a jack of all trade thing. There are specific tools, chemistry, equipment that do it most efficiently.
Yep.
And so, anybody could get something done with that simple G stuff you talked about, but it's not necessarily going to be done well. It's not
Right.
necessarily going to be residue free. It may have other characteristics that work against the cleaning process of what
Yeah.
you're trying to achieve. So, part of what it gets into is that the right tools for the right job, tools including chemistry, is how you become most efficient at being effective.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I love that theme
Yeah.
because we've been saying that for a lot of years. I mean, why do we have 4,000 formulas
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
bowling companies? It's
Yeah.
because it's not one product I mean, there is one product that can do everything, Scott. It's called H2O.
Right.
But we all know the limitations there, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Not going to do grease, not going to do oil. It doesn't encapsulate. It does like, blah, blah, blah. So we've made a living at the Bullen companies with specialty laser focused products
Yeah.
so that people can operate in a more efficient manner to becoming effective. Sorry, that was a plug, but I'm
A blatant product plug there.
it kind
A
of was,
products plug.
but you know, I think everybody that's involved with manufacturing can appreciate my
Yeah.
comment there. I mean, it's
Yeah.
what everybody'd want to say, I think, other than people that want to make a living with the jack of all trades kind of
Yep.
does
Yep.
it all.
All good stuff, all hot news, and
Fun to talk about.
hope everybody enjoyed it. We kind of dove deep into all kinds of stuff today. So watch out for your PFAS. Don't forget to get a pie and have a beer,
At the same time,
and stay cool. At some point, this whole climate change thing's going to turn around, probably around the fall when it starts snowing again. So.
you know, I think that Philadelphia Pie Company is going to reach out to you and thank you for the plug.
Hopefully, maybe I'll get a case of these.
Yeah.
My favorite. Okay, everybody, will have a good one. We'll see you at the next show. And Mark, safe travels out there. Stay cool and all that. At
All
some point,
right.
it's going to get manageable temperature wise. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
See y'all.
Thanks, Scott.